Hi BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I thought I would let you guys know what's going on with me in my reading. So we just got back from our vacation to Lake Lore and Chimney Rock, which was actually, if you're familiar with Last of the Mohicans or Dirty Dancing, those were filmed there. Although some of Dirty Dancing was filmed in Virginia as well, but it was more of a kind of a low-key vacation. It's one of those places where it's very quaint, small town. There's not a lot of shops, or there's some shops there. There's places to eat and breweries, but it's very very cozy and quaint. One of those places that at one time it had a general store which had everything. Now, though, it's mostly like souvenirs and stuff like that, and occasionally you might have to buy some like candy and stuff like that. But now they have a bunch of shops, a bunch of places, and the grocery store is like the big grocery store is, you still drive there, but it's fun. It's more of a hiking and a lot of outdoor activities. Although, I think my dad was a little disappointed with the fishing because it was right after Hurricane Ian hit, and they had took out some of the water because they were worried they would be affected, and they decided to let it naturally fill up again, which takes forever. So, it wasn't the best for my dad's fishing, and that's, I think, why he was cool with going to Asheville and Hendersonville. Asheville is a pretty famous town in North Carolina where it's like a very artsy type community, lots of shops, a lot of more creative stuff, and really unique clothes and handmade stuff. And I was really excited to go. And actually, the first time I heard about Asheville was on a Rumbell fan fiction. And, I guess that person really liked Asheville, but although they spent more time with Rumbell, of course, because it was still a Rumbell romance. But, since then, in the fact that both my parents and my sister and her husband went to Asheville without me, thank you very much. So finally my dad was like, okay, let's go. We can go, and you only need to spend a few hours, although I think I could have spent a little bit more time there, or at least spend more time in Hendersonville or something. And maybe got to go to Biltmore, which is super expensive to tour, but still, it would have been fun. So we also hiked up the famous Chimney Rock Mountain. It's the Blue Ridge Mountains. We hiked up 3,000 feet. And we also went to what is the falls in that community, which is like a rocks, with a waterfall. Although there were some dumb people there who were like, I'm going to climb up to the top in the area that I'm not supposed to go. And he got stuck because the rocks are very slippery. And I was just so worried that he was going to fall or something. Because I always assumed I wasn't, I was fine with heights and everything. But no, I'm not. I had anxiety the whole time. I still love doing it. It was still fun to hike, and I felt very proud of myself that we did it. Although even beforehand I was nervous. But they do have deck type steps, so that I really appreciate that. That helped ease my nerves a little bit. But then once we got to the Chimney Rock, the main rock area, and I didn't want to get too close, and then take to where people were taking pictures. And even watching strangers taking pictures, I was I had such anxiety where something would happen. And then of course later that night, my dad shared some stories about things that have happened to people falling off, which was like, thanks, Dad. They give me nightmares. And whenever they decided to take pictures of the view with themselves and the view in the background, I was like, every time the crowd would move and I couldn't see them, I was like, okay, where are they? So yeah, I was very anxious, but I'm still glad I did. It was still fun. It was a bit of an adventure. I had a good time. It was really cool. Um, and so we ended up there was no bookstore, library in the community, so I was a little frustrated and disappointed by that. But there were some places in the towns in Asheville and Hendersonville which were not that far. So we went up there and I got 2 books while I was there, along with the coffee. So I was a little bit disappointed. I felt like I wish I could spend more time in either one of those towns. But I also, if someone's not as interested, I feel like you got to be a little more conscientious of the activities you're doing. So it kind of can take away the time. I kind of felt a little rushed. I mean, my mom was, told me when we were talking about actually today, she was like, oh, I would have been perfectly content just hanging out at the little cafe. Because there was a little, in the first one in Asheville, the first bookstore in Asheville, there was a cafe. Because it was a regular independent bookstore. So the other one was an used one. Which was smaller. The selection, unfortunately, was not as big. But she was timing out. She would have been fine, drinking a cup of coffee, maybe reading a magazine or finding a book or something, or looking at her phone or whatever. My dad gets a little impatient, which is funny because when it comes to his kind of store, like hardware store or something like that, he's perfectly content just hanging out, and browsing. And it's like, I don't think he realizes his response comes off as a little impatient and be like, okay, can we go now? But he was like, oh, well, I understand this is your thing, so I was gonna, and I guess if you're just not interested, it's hard not to give vibes of, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go as soon as possible. I can see where sometimes it's a struggle not to avoid showing those vibes. So I think my lesson is always go with the person that's more than willing to spend as much time at the bookstore as you do, or is willing to just sit and get some coffee or something. But let me show you the 2 books I got. Each bookstore I got 1 book because I'm trying to stick to my budget. So in the first bookstore, I got a memory called Empire, which is a sci-fi. And I'm not going to try to read this because I tried to read when I first filmed this. I did try to read the back, but I cannot figure out how to pronounce the name. But this ambassador has traveled to this empire as her new post, this Texicalani Empire. But her predecessor has died, and she's trying to figure out what happened. But of course, no, everyone tells her, oh, they didn't die. They just died. There was no murder or anything. But she suspects they were murdered, and that she might be next. And she's also kind of trying to adapt to this new alien culture that is, as the description says, seductive and engaging. And apparently hiding a technological secret. But it sounds really cool. I remember hearing about it from people like Reagan from Peruse Projects. I don't know how many books there's going to be. The second one just came out. I don't know if there's going to be more or if it's just going to be a duology. But the second one came out not that long ago. A Desolation Called Peace. So it sounded really cool. And actually, even though there was more selection and it was an independent store, so it had more of the newer books, it was still very hard to pick. But I want to go for more science fiction, fantasy instead of a classic. So I got this one. And I'm going to read it soon. I don't know when. Okay, so next, the other bookstore, like I said, was a little smaller. There wasn't as much to choose from. You basically had the wall of books, a shelf with books. You go back a little farther, and there was a little shelf in the middle. And then there was more in the shelves all the way on the other side. And when you first enter, there's also the cashier just in her stand and all that. But I did at first look at these editions these paper mill classics editions of some of my favorite classics, and there were some of them that I already read that I wanted to get those editions for them, but then my mom was like, you already have them, so you don't need to get, because she's not a big fan of me switching out when I already have a perfectly good edition. I mean, she understands me switching out like mass market or hardback. I think she's cool with that, but just switching out my editions because I like a different edition. That's I think it's nicer. So she was all, if you're gonna buy that one, you would need to buy one that you haven't read yet. And unfortunately, they were newer books, so they were more costly. So I ended up not getting those. It was hard for me to make a decision. I had to, rely on my mom to tell me to, be like, nope, you probably shouldn't get them. To remind me that they cost more money. So I got a used book instead. A historical fiction, actually, set both in London in the 1660s and the early 2000s. So it follows a similar formula to Kate Warren's books, where you have a modern day person discovering some secrets of the past and researching them, and then we go back and forth between the present and then the past. I think that's what I'm assuming. So it's a little bit of a mystery. Our main character discovers some documents. Our main character, Esther Velasquez, discovers, Helen is our present day character, and she discovers these documents. Huh, that's funny. Sorry, I'm distracted by the price where it says, U.S. price $16.99, but then instead of saying the Canadian price, it just says higher in Canada. If you can read it. I thought that was funny. Because most books usually say how much it would cost in Canada, which is a little bit more expensive, but it's just higher in Canada. But, Helen, she discovers these documents, these Jewish documents, and she asks this guy to help her, this American graduate student, and they're trying to figure out who originally wrote these documents. It's under a code name, Aleph. And meanwhile, in the 1660s, you have this woman, Esther Velasquez, who is an immigrant from Amsterdam, who she's allowed to scribe for this blind rabbi, and I'm assuming that she's going to be the one that wrote the documents. And also won an award. So, it sounded really interesting. It reminded me of both the historian and a Kate Warren book, where you have a modern day character just learning something about the past and trying to figure out what happened back then. I like stories where, that we're exploring the character, our main character, present day character is exploring the past, because that's something I would love to do myself, but and piece together like a puzzle what happened in the past. But I'm lazy and I don't have, it's not as easy for me to travel to the places where stuff like history happened. So I live vicariously through historical fiction and vacations and that we take, because we have taken some vacations like getting to Europe and stuff like that. So this sounded really cool and exciting and interesting, so I got that one, and I like that it's longer. I'm always constantly searching for longer books, even if they take me forever to read. So those are the two books I got at Asheville and Hendersonville. Okay, now let's talk about what I'm currently reading. And then I got one more book that I just bought from Thrift Books, and then I'm going to do a video when I get them. I'll film a video talking about the books I just ordered, because I ended up, like I said, I wanted to get those paper mill press books editions, but they were a little more expensive. So my mom was like, why don't you check online? And there's certain places, and I looked on Amazon. Of course, Amazon is still pricey. So and I looked at Book Outlet as well. I looked at Thrift Books first, but I had trouble finding them there, so I ended up I signed up for Book Outlet, and they are there as well. Now, unfortunately, it's not the big there have been, big collections of 20 of them. Like, I think all of the books, where you can get them for this much, but they were out of stock, so it was no longer available. So I just got like 5 of them, because when you first sign up for a Book Outlet, if you order 35, it says that if you get something that costs 35 plus, then you get free shipping. So my mom was like, you may as well get, all 5 of them, get 5 of them. So to go over. So anyway, so I will do a video when I get those in the mail. Maybe an unboxing or something. Of course, it will depend on when I get them, because I might be working. And I have a hard time resisting the urge to not open the package right away if it's for me and I know it's a book. But anyway, let's talk about what I've been reading. So right before we left for Chimney Rock, at the end of September going into October, I finally picked this up again and started reading it again. This was another situation where I got the book from the library, but it's a long book, so I was like, let me just buy it, because I'm really enjoying it, but I don't want to have to keep renewing it, so. And this has been compared to Twilight, actually, as far as the plot goes, because it does have a similar plot where our main character is immortal and she falls in love with a vampire. But our main character is an adult, unlike Bella, who's a teenager. And she is a witch. So she's better at taking care of herself and kind of has a better idea of what she's getting into, although it was made clear that she doesn't know a lot about vampires, only what she's been told by her aunts. So Diana Bishop is our main character, and because she feels like magic killed her parents, and it's very dangerous, she decides she wants to stay away from it, or refuses to practice it, and she becomes a historian. And at the moment, she is in Oxford studying for her dissertation, and she discovers, while doing her research, she accidentally stumbles upon a manuscript, the Ashmole 182, which is an alchemical manuscript, and it seems to have some very strange secrets, and that might have to do with magic. So she tries to get rid of it, but it turns out people recognize the manuscript as having secrets about each of the species in this world: the vampires, witches, and what is called daemons. Now, they're not like demons, but not like in Christian mythology or anything like that, but there are people that are very like geniuses and have a lot of powerful magical gifts, like as far as creating things. And this manuscript talks about the creation of each of these races. So everyone starts hunting her down and asking her for the manuscript. And including this mysterious vampire who's a biology teacher at Oxford, Matthew Claremont, and he's very intrigued by her and the manuscript. And he offers her protection. And he ends up he becomes kind of her bodyguard. And at first she's kind of annoyed by it and and is still scared, but is not afraid to stand up to him and doesn't let him push her around or bully her. And eventually they become friends and then start to fall in love. So it's very similar to Twilight, and like Twilight, Matthew's a little controlling, but it's also kind of just really fun, and I really like the romance. And it has its faults, and it's not a masterpiece, but it's just fun. And I don't think, despite what certain critics say, I think there's nothing wrong with reading something that's fun and thrilling. Yes, challenge yourself and read something with more depth and something a little more challenging. And who says that these books don't have depth anyway? It really is good as far as good versus evil and love and the bonds of family. And it's just, I think sometimes we need a palate cleanser, something that's fun, or whether you call it a palate cleanser, a guilty pleasure. I think we are allowed to read that kind of stuff. And I think it's a little snobby to say otherwise. To say that, yes, challenge yourself. I'm all for challenging yourself and read something that's a little more intellectual or a little more has a little more depth. But I also don't think you should keep away from stuff like this. But it was really fun. I liked reading about these characters, and like I said, I'm a big fan of stories where characters are learning about the past, like dark academia type stories, and or just regular academia type stories. I think those are fun, and it's something I just picture myself doing, that kind of stuff, researching and going on these quests to find the answers to the past. Unfortunately, I can't always do that, so I live vicariously through these type of characters, like with the Weight of Ink and this one. And I still think that this is superior to Twilight. If you're going to compare it to Twilight, I think this is better than Twilight, but of course I'm also like in my 30s. And not of the target audience age. Although I still think you can still read something that's not where you're not the target audience and enjoy that, as long as you remember you're not the target audience. And I still have a soft spot for Twilight, but it was fun. I had a good time with it. I enjoyed the ride. I enjoyed exploring Diane and Deborah Harkness's version of this kind of world, and I like her take. I think her take was very interesting, unique on vampires. And don't worry, there's no like sparkliness or anything like that. I know a lot of people, that's people's biggest gripe, is that Edward sparkles. But don't worry, Matthew does not do that. I also, he's really smart, and I prefer, him over Edward. Matthew isn't, well, okay, he is very moody, but he's not necessarily as bad as Edward, in my opinion. But yeah, it was really fun, and I don't know any other word to describe it, but I was surprised I got it done, before we left. I was able to get through it before we left, because I didn't want to, because I was having trouble narrowing down the books I was going to bring. I was trying to limit myself to at least 2 or 3 books. But, and there were other books I wanted to read, but I don't like leaving books hanging, If it's possible to finish it, I will finish it. So I just gotta read one. I have one more book. So I don't know when I'm gonna read it. I don't know if I'm gonna wait until Christmas or maybe get it in December or something. But for myself, I don't know. But I do want to get it soon. So I had a good time with that. So the books I ended up bringing with me. So were these 3. 2 witch books, and then a ghost story. So I recently signed up for some readathons, autumnal readathons, and one of, like an end of the year readathon, and like, spooky readathon, and, I was able to get some of the books in for that, so I was able. Sorry, I have this one spot in the middle of my back that's really itchy. So I had been wanting to reread this book because I read it years ago, and this has people have very polarizing opinions about this book, and that's Wicked by Gregory Maguire. It's very different from the Oz books by Frank L. Baum and the musical that was based off of this book, that was inspired by this, it was inspired by the book. The book came first, basically, and then someone decided to adapt it into a musical, which was great, and I love it. I've seen it twice, I think. And this is the origin story of the Wicked Witch of the West, and it's a little bit darker of a story, a little more intense, and a lot more going on, a lot of more political intrigue. There's a lot of more adult content. And Elphaba's just I have a love-hate relationship with her, because there are times when I get I shouldn't say hate, just more like frustrated, because she's a character that's very bitter and very cynical, and I can't blame her, but at the same time I just get really frustrated with her, like, there's a one scene where she's talking about how she doesn't have a soul, and how she's just saying, oh, I'm evil, and it's like, you just get frustrated and be like, evil isn't born, honey, it's made. You're not evil, and everybody has a soul. At least that's what I believe. And, she's such a fascinating character and very frustrating character. I think you either love this book or you hate it. And it's funny that one review said that that you should just go see the stage show. And I think there's sometimes some adaptations, whether it's a stage show or like a movie or a TV show, sometimes it's better to watch those. Especially with older books, like older classics. That sometimes it's just easier to get into the movie and get really emotional about the movie. And it also helps you understand it better. Like, I was watching Carolyn Marie Reads doing a video where she said there are some books where she prefers the movie adaptation. And I totally get it, because sometimes it's just harder to get into. I mean, like, I think for a lot of people, the musical stage show is better and more appealing than the book, because of some of the things the book includes is just a little too much for people. And it's just like, and a lot of people did not like Gregor Maguire's writing. They think his writing is terrible. They don't like some of the content in this book, this mature content that's very inappropriate, a little inappropriate and dark, although I think Stevie King does a lot worse than Gregor Maguire. And obviously I don't shy away from that stuff. Like, I'm more, if I can actually see it and not just reading it described to me in the book, like, I'm seeing it on the screen, then yeah, I'm a little squeamish there. But if I'm just reading about it in a book, then it doesn't bother me that stuff. Because at the end of the day, my imagination isn't so good that it will make me a little, like, I mean, there are times when, like I said, you know, in the video we're talking about Dark Creepy Reads, which is gonna be coming at the end of the month. I talked about Nosferatu, and there was a character in that book that's just, some of the things he does to the characters, to some of the parents of these children characters that get taken by the antagonist, is very disturbing and makes me uncomfortable. But it's not enough for me to turn off from the book, because the story is still great and compelling and just terrifying and fun to read. And like, there's that infamous scene in it that is not a turn off for me. I will still read the book. Sometimes I feel like I have to defend that, and I can't really I don't know if I can make a good argument on why, but it doesn't bother me because I'm just reading it in the book. You know, my imagination is not that good, and just because I read it and enjoy the story does not mean I support that. I do not support that kind of stuff. But it's a book. It's fiction. It's not going on I'm not seeing it. At least not in the present I'm reading the book. If I see it, then yeah. But, you know, this kind of stuff does not make me uncomfortable. It makes me more uncomfortable when I see it. Like, actually seeing it on screen or in person. Because there was one incident on the cruise where I saw something that was very adult, that I was not comfortable when I went on the cruise. And that's all you're going to get, though. I'm not going to explain anymore. And I might have already talked about it. I might have mentioned it already. But anyway, so reading books about that are things that some people might find a little too mature for them, or a little too inappropriate for their mind. Well, it doesn't faze me when it's in a book. But yeah, I really like this. Oh, and this edition, as I mentioned, has pages from the original, like images from the original Broadway show, which I think is really cool. Although the casting of the original cast of Fiyero, Elphaba's love interest, the way he's cast is not the way he's described in the book, if that makes sense. He's described very differently in the book. Because it's that what made me think, it's like, oh, well, I guess if they have a good performance, but it's like, well, he's not supposed to look like that. But I don't want to be one of those people who's like, you know, how dare the character be cast and not look how I picture them. Although it's not even that, to be fair. It's Like, the description that is actually used in the book is not how he looks in the original Broadway cast. But I guess maybe that actor did the best performance, and, I like the sound of his voice, but, because I have the soundtrack. But anyway, and I don't even remember who played the character in the 2 times I saw the show, because I have seen the show twice. But anyway, I really like this, and I actually finally have all the books in the series. There's 4 books, and recently the author wrote another book in the series as well. I don't know if he's going to continue it or not, but I have that one as well. The whole, I cannot remember what they're called. But anyway, so, and then I got the other witchy book, is The Witching Hour by Anne Rice. I read a little bit more of this, obviously. You can see how super long it is. But it is going to be, in January, it's going to come out as a show. So I want to read a little bit more before the show comes out. Because sometimes the show, I'm thinking, no, I'm already watching the show, so I don't need to read the book. So I don't want to make that mistake with this one, like I did with, sorry, the little price in the back is started coming off, so, oh, of course, it did this. See? As you can see, like, I don't know if you can tell how sometimes there's residue. So it felt like it was being peeled off, but now it has residue, so that's really annoying. But this is about this family of witches, the Mayfair witches in New Orleans, and they are haunted by this devil type figure, the shadow that always seduces certain women in the family. And the latest member of the family, Rowan, has been sent away and is grows up in California with her cousins. But she might be lured back to her hometown of New Orleans, her birthplace in New Orleans. So, it's again another one of those stories where we go back and forth between the past and the present, which you guys know I really like. Anne Rice, I really love her writing style, and but her books, again, another author that writes really long books, but enjoyable ones. Okay, well, I will have to do this later, so, so it's long, and I wanted to read as much as possible for the adaptation coming in January. I still gotta watch Interview with the Vampire 2. I gotta watch episode 2. So, so that, I also read a little bit of that, where, like, this one guy that Rowan had saved, Michael, he's this Irish kid, he's an adult now, and he actually came from her hometown, and I think I don't remember what he was doing, if he was trying to commit suicide or what, but he ends up falling into the water, and Rowan saves him. And then after having his near-death experience, he ends up being someone who can touch objects and see visions. So he's been trying to track her down, and she wanted to be anonymous, but now she keeps thinking about the guy, and she was attracted to him, and they're about to meet, I think. They're about to cross paths. So, sorry, now that I've started, I want to take this little price tag off. But anyway, so, the last book is not a witch book, but I brought Bag of Bones by Stephen King. I was inspired to pick this up. This is the story of a writer his wife just died, and he's trying to decide if he wants to, and he's still kind of grieving, but he keeps being drawn to the lake house that they used to buy, that they call Sarah Laughs. And, when he gets there, he comes across this woman and her daughter, and the woman's father wants his granddaughter back, wants to take his granddaughter away. So, and I think he tries to help them, and he tries to help them out. So I did sort of watch the adaptation with Pierce Brosnan that came on TV, but I don't remember. It's been so long since that came out. But I haven't got very far in this because I'm trying to focus more on Wicked. But so we haven't even got to him going to visit the lake house. He's trying to avoid it. But there are references actually to Rebecca in the story, and how like the main character in Rebecca, he is dreaming about the lake house, like how our main character in Rebecca was dreaming about Manderley, and like I said, obviously he's gonna end up back there. So, and this one takes place in Derry actually. So there are references to Bill, and there's also a reference to Tad Beaumont from The Dark Half. And this book takes place after what happens to him, his character. So I really like that. I like how he creates his own universe, but he's able to tell very different stories, and he can make references to all the other books. I really think that's I really like that idea. But yeah, so I have not gone far, but Stephen King is very easy to read. So okay, so that's my reading. So and one other thing, I ended up actually, my mom is getting me. First of all, you guys, I'm wearing the shirt I got that my mom got me. I cannot remember if it was TJ Maxx, I think was where we got it. And actually today we were shopping, she was trying to find these particular shoes, and I looked around a little bit at Ross, and I actually found a sweatshirt that referenced Hocus Pocus 2. And she was like, I just bought you a hoodie that has to do with Hocus Pocus, so you don't need to get the sweatshirt. But yeah, she got me this one. We bought this one like a couple weeks ago before we left for our vacation, and I almost brought it with me. And then this is the one she was referring to that she just got me. She recently went to visit my grandma and went to BJ's, and she got me this. Although I noticed both this shirt and this one is a little inaccurate in small ways, like the hair color of Winifred is not the same, and she's the one and this is Sarah, and she's the one who's supposed to be wearing the purple, not Mary. And actually, Mary looks a little like Ursula. I just realized that. She looks a little like Ursula, and has similar hairstyle to her. And the same in this one, too. But, I mean, I think, obviously, going by the fact that this is Hocus Pocus and everything, I think people will realize what it's... And I'm sure this is, like, amateur, not made by Disney, but which would be more expensive. That's the thing. I mean, I like some of their merch that they have at the parks and stuff, but it's pricey. It's a lot. They are making a lot of money there, so they can charge a lot. But yeah. So, and that was cool. I was very happy about that. And then, oh, dang it. Sorry. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is the other book, and I would do a video about the books, that Paper Mill Press books that I got that I'm going to get in the mail. I have to go back on my email and see when I'm going to get that. I also got this. This is Lasher, the second book. It's a trilogy. The Made for Witches is a trilogy, and I got Lasher. And there's one more book that I gotta get. There's Tatalis, that's the third book. And I wanted to, I almost bought a hardback copy of the second book when I went to Black Castle Books the last time, which has been months. But then it was I was talking to actually the guy that owns the store or whatever, and he was like, well, it's always going to be here if you want to get it. So he was trying to help me make a decision. So, which I kind of did put him on the spot, I think. Like I told him, I was trying to decide, and so I ended up not getting, because hardback books, even in a used bookstore, are still more expensive because it's hardback. But and plus hardback, especially the longer books, is not as fun to read, you know. Although I do have Blood and Fire in hardback, so, and I debated about like switching that one out for the paperback, because the paperback just came out. So but this is the second book, and I think I kind of have an idea of what happens in the first book at the end, because one, when I first attempted to read it, I kind of looked at the last page just to see what was going to happen, especially with the couple that's introduced in the story. And then I kind of, obviously when I purchased this book, I read the description and stuff. I know a little bit about what's going on. But yeah, I'm going to read this, and I think what I want to do is read all of her other works. There's nothing to do with the Vampire Chronicles, and then come back to the Vampire Chronicles, possibly. But anyway, so this is the second book with she kind of does a similar thing to what Juliet Marillier does, where each book is a different generation, a different main character, or at least that's what it sounds like. So I think I'll have to look at what the book 3 says, which is the last book. So but yeah, I think this is about a different character than the first one. So Ben Rowan, and I think this is the character, the demon character, I think. So yeah, so that is how things are going right now. I'm going to read a little bit more Wicked today. And then before it gets too late, I'm going to read a little bit more before it gets dark. Because this is the only day I have off until, I'm working all weekend, and then I'm off Monday and Tuesday. So I'll start, so I'll have those 2 days, so which granted I need to work. So as much as the next person, I enjoy having my days off, but work is important. If you want to buy stuff, you gotta earn the money. It's not so I'll be working a lot this week. I've been working a lot this week, and I'm working like I said, I'm working all weekend, and I have some days off. But anyway, so that is where I am with my reading right now. Where are you in your reading? Are you participating in Victober? What Victorian literature are you currently reading? Or are you reading something more spooky and fun and more in the spooky season? Feel free to share in the comments below. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up and click subscribe if you are interested in my channel. And if you want to know when I'm uploading videos, please click the bell icon. And I hope you're enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you all later. All right, bye!